All right, Ryan, we got video today.
All right, very excited. Brand new world for me.
We had a whole 20-minute segment of it just recording us figuring out how to connect all this shit.
Yeah, that sounds par for the course.
Well, as this is going to be your last one in person here in Tennessee, I'm glad we have proof you exist.
I almost wish I was more of an urban legend instead.
We can make that happen. One of my favorite podcasts, and they teach a lot about, both storytelling and philosophy. They had a producer, helped so much. He was never on camera. Interesting guy. And then the last episode, when he retires because he's going to go travel abroad, they do a big reveal of who he is, and they show the family dog.
Perfect.
Like, we could have done that.
That's all right.
So which whiskey is this?
So this is Iron Root Harbinger out of Texas. Really interesting distillery owned by the Licorice family. The two Licorice brothers
Are they black?
the main force. Nope. Really, two gingers actually.
So they're red licorice.
Something like that. Great people. During the phylloxera outbreak that made wine not really feasible for a time period in France, it was eating up all the vines, the phylloxera beetle. That really set the scene for whiskey to be able to take center stage, and Scotch whiskey exploded at that point. Iron Root in that part of Texas is responsible for grafting together different roots with the vines for grapes that were resistant to the phylloxera beetle outbreak. So it helped save the wine industry. So they still have a strong connection with the wine world over in Europe. They use a lot of wine casks at their distillery. I don't think this particular bottle does, but just a really interesting story with them.
Tastes good. Tastes good.
I just love Texas whiskey. You get so much barrel impact in so little time that it's hard to avoid any of that vanilla caramel. It's so upfront and beats you over the head with the flavors.
I feel like there's something else happening in here that I'm not familiar with, and I've tasted a lot of things.
I'm trying to think what that would be. Weirdly, I'm almost getting some green apple today, which normally is a note I get from Irish whiskey. That might just be my palate's a little different than what it is most days.
I taste charcoal.
That would be that Texas heat I'm talking about. It turns out you throw a barrel in the heat and it just bakes, and Texas is a little bit warmer than it is in Scotland and Ireland.
Man, I'm going to get all misty on in you. I saw a video last night of people, coopers charring their casks, and they were doing it in this over-the-top artistic style to watch. It's like, fuck, I wanted us to actually go on like a tour to go to cooperage.
You just need to come visit me, because there's one in Minnesota, one of the big ones.
I will fucking do that, because we have friends who understand whiskey really well. You are the only friend I have that knows so much that you actually are getting to that, like, I want to see the wood. I want to see the barrel.
Absolutely. Show me the wood.
Yeah. That's the whole thing. You get this wonderful clear liquid, but it's the wood. It's the, man, that's such a cool part of whiskey.
I am glad that you are right there with me on that. Had a guy in the bar last night who's trying to get into Scotch, and he had me pour him 3 different scotches just to try, and he enjoyed all of them, but he kept saying that it tastes bourbony. And he was saying, well, I think it's the bourbon cask. And I'm like, well, all of the scotch that you try, for the most part, is going to have bourbon casks in them. They're cheap barrels. We only use them once. All scotch is going to have that. What is it that this one's heavy sherry. It's only in Oloroso sherry cask. Where are you getting bourbon from? What note is it that you're getting bourbon? He was like, oh, that strong caramel vanilla note. Brother, that's just a barrel.
Yeah.
You're going to find that in all whiskey, I guarantee you. If it's put in a barrel, it's going to have those notes. That's not bourbon.
You're right about both things. I would love to take the next step and have the exact same grain, exact same mix, exact same aging, just aged in different woods, and feel, is there a wood out there that doesn't have that vanilla flavor? Could you do that?
There's definitely different woods out there with different flavors. Like, I'm gonna butcher the name of this, but it's like Amberona wood. It's a Brazilian oak, and apparently you can put whiskey in it for like 5 days, and it's drastically different and adds nice spice notes and everything to it. That's gonna be coming up on the scene very quickly for whiskey. Penelope's already done. They call it their Rio release. They're going to be scaling that up and doing a lot more of that, the reps said. But that one was the Brazilian oak as well as a honey cask, which sounds delightful to me.
Yeah.
Look forward to trying some eventually. I've seen some rums using that type of oak, so we'll see what else is out there.
Well, we will make time to do that. We'll get into a little bit more about, how this week's been going for you and the farewell at the end, but let's get into the topics.
Absolutely. Let's jump in.
Yeah, the more I drink,
Enough
the more
of me
I like
rambling.
it. Rambling's half the fun. So the first thing I wanted to get into was the exercise follow-up. You kind of helped get me on that train, and the more it got refined and clear that picking a full-on exercise, have a plan that's something that could be usable from A to Z, even if it's just imaginary, and work on it, learning so much from that. And to follow up on that, last week I showed you my video of Stirling Castle.
Yes.
The challenge from that, the lesson from that was, if you have very simple camera movements, you're going to create yourself a whole lot of extra work in the editing room. For that, I only had one really beautiful, but just one large orbiting shot. And no matter how good it is or how long it is, you don't have that much variety in feel. So I had to do so many takes and so much cut and so much this, that, and everything to try to extract some kind of interest instead of just feeling like you're staring at the same thing for a minute.
You need a storyboard a little bit beforehand, help make sure you get the variety you're looking for.
And that's exactly what I did. Just like dance, I feel like most of the storytelling, dance is a good metaphor, where there's a structure to it, but you have to make it up on the fly. Just like that, have to start off making plans. And once you get really good at it, you can probably think of these plans or recall these plans or mix these plans up on the fly. But I'm still a beginner. So there's this building up the street that's been going up over the past year. And I love watching it. It's one of my favorite parts of living in this neighborhood. I used to be in structural engineering.
Right.
I still have that little kid thing where I see a construction truck go by and I'm like, fuck yeah. And, trains and...
It's a dump truck.
No! Pouring the concrete. Hell yeah. So I know in real estate it's something people complain about, all the construction around here. But for me, it's a plus,
Hey, I like that way of looking at it.
So it's gotten almost complete. And on Sunday, I wanted to have a little bit of time to just do something solo. And I got ahead. This would be a good idea. I could make a video of that and then put together a mock advertisement for that building.
Yes, I remember you sending me that one.
Yeah. So the first step I did was think, what shots would I want to have? In that one course, they did a good job of listing all the, not all, there's an infinite number, but a very compressive stuff, like most common shots, about 10 or 12. And some suggestions of you should go out, do a project, and use them all. And it's easy to do in the ground, harder to do in the sky. So I sat there and I thought, okay, could do this, could do that, a couple other ideas. And then probably the idea that was the best rule you could always use, find an example. I looked online, found a YouTube video of somebody at, not doing a real estate home where they walk in, but like a building.
Sure.
And it was kind of placid and boring, and I didn't like it. That's truth. I found another video, and I kept going through it until I found one that hit me like, this feels good. I like this. And immediately, you don't have to worry about, am I getting the right example, a good teacher, a bad teacher? Like, this is a good example. At least for the style I want to do. It feels good to me. I know this is going to work great. So I looked at what kind of patterns they use and what kind of shots they use, made a list, and went out and tried it.
And it looked good. You did a very good job with that.
I appreciate that. I'm not really good at taking the compliments, but
Too modest.
I felt so much better with this. When I sat down to edit it, it was this whole feeling of, look at all these fun tools I have. I could put this in here and I could put this there. It was almost the opposite of where there's all these different fun feelings and changing. It's like if you're putting somebody in an amusement park ride. There's all these different motions you're giving them. It feels good. It's almost a point of, well, it would be too much and we start getting seasick. But they're definitely not going to be bored or, have a better ride.
Finding that middle ground, that nice balance to it.
Yeah. So I went out and what I already had was my go-to is to do the big orbiting shot.
Right.
That's very good for an establishing shot. You see the whole building, you see the property around it, you kind of see the setting.
It helps you be able to pick out, okay, when we zoom in on this part, they're going to know roughly where you are in frame.
Yeah. In movies, it can start establishing the story because you go, oh, they're about to enter this, or this is about to come get them, or whatever. And then some pretty good, sliding truck shots, which is my baby step towards getting close-up views of good detail. But for this, I sat down and said, those will be useful, but you also need to have an entrance shot. So where you come from far away and you're moving towards it.
Right.
It doesn't really let you see that much more of the property and the land around it than the orbiting shot does. But it gives you that feeling of we're going there.
Yep.
So that naturally felt like such a perfect intro to the whole thing. And then the next thing to add was they did spice, where there's unique features about this event, this building, or this person or something. Focus super close on those.
Highlight the part that makes it special.
Yeah. Good or bad, it's just, And that's one of the biggest takeaways I'm getting from this ground-based videography course. Get really up close for a brief moment, and it has a lot of impact. So for that, on this one, it was the roof decks. That looked really nice.
It did.
You can see that in the orbiting shot. You can see that in the approach shot. But having a really close zoomed in shot of that, it has a different feeling to it. And there was other things you could do like that. What I've noticed is the up close shots are sensory. So I show you the full building and the surrounding area in an orbit shot. It's pretty, it uses your eyes, but you're mostly thinking like, it's this, it has this, it is this.
Right.
But I've noticed this with all of the demos I've seen, like a gym video or a commercial of this. When they do up close shots, you should get so up close that it's almost like one sense. Like this is a person grabbing the handle. They're grabbing the wheel, the steering wheel. Because it's about the sense of, oh, I'm feeling the steering wheel with my hands.
That makes sense. You're helping them be able to imagine the little details of what it would feel like.
Feel, yeah. It's about like, if you close your eyes and if you're trying to plan this out, just close your eyes and imagine all the things you would feel in this. We'll do the example of maybe making a cup of coffee in the morning. You're going to feel the steps of your feet on the ground as you walk to the kitchen.
So highlighting whether or not it's hardwood, carpet, that way you get that texture.
Then you're going to feel holding the coffee mug.
All right.
You're going to have a close-up shot of you grabbing the mug.
Absolutely, and hopefully it's a nice clean mug, nice, I don't know, what would that be, clay, something like that. It's not going to be a glass one that's going to burn you when it's filled up.
All of these things, whatever it is.
Just highlighting those little sensory inputs.
Yeah, it's almost like when you get these up-close shots, you're not even showing how it looks. You're creating the imagination of how it felt when you connected with that. So the next thing would be smell. You would smell, once you open the tub, you smell something. Or if you're cooking something on the stove, you'd smell something. You get a super up-close shot, not to show how pretty the coffee beans look or the steak looks, but to give the feeling of, oh, with my nose, I'm smelling this detail.
So almost for like our coffee, it would be opening up the, I don't know, coffee grounds and seeing just little granules of the coffee just like swirling in the air with the force of it while you're lifting it open, and really showing that percussive force of opening it, pushing the scent into the air and into your nose.
You're really getting it. Yeah, you just describing that. You're using words instead of picture, but still, feel that with
I'm better with words.
my tongue senses. I would love to see if between now and the next time we meet, if you notice more of this in things you see in TV, on movies and stuff, because I feel like this is a real thing. Even with sound, I feel like there's close-ups that they'll do of something like, oh, you're supposed to be feeling this is loud or this is quiet or something like that.
Absolutely, and this to me almost sounds like it's tying back into our color exercise of color correcting and making it so that way the colors aren't true to life as they were on the camera when you recorded it, but it's true to the feeling of being there. It's trying to convey that same emotion, the same way that you're using now, what shots you're picking out,
Yep.
what camera angles you're using. It's that same idea of trying to convey the emotion of the experience rather than just what it really looks like if you were just standing there watching someone make coffee.
When you're out having a snowball fight with your friends and you pick up a ball of snow with your bare hands, your eyes don't zoom in super close to the snow.
No.
But your consciousness, your awareness, everything your brain is thinking about does. It goes from you stop hearing what's going around, you stop seeing what's going around you.
Oh, you'll
but
hear the crunch of the snow as you're packing it together. You'll feel that along with the noise. You'll know how cold it is to the point where your hands, you're now aware how warm they are compared to the cold.
It's a brief moment, but for that moment, your entire focus, everything of your attention is completely on that one part of your body. So for a brief moment, zooming in the view to bring the viewer's attention to just that one thing, similarly, it's that feeling a whole lot. It's been kind of wild decoding all this because it's been happening naturally in media my whole life, and you have the feeling, and it makes sense. But now it's kind of seeing like, oh, that's how and why. And I want to try it out intentionally now.
Try and use those tools to convey the emotion to others and make them feel what you want them to feel from it. That sounds like marketing 101, my friend.
And that's what this all is. You're creating an emotion. So
Always.
I'm looking forward to like practicing with this more as I get more time. But it feels like there's a whole new paintbrush of you can just create different. You can create all five senses, with visual, if you know what you're doing.
I could agree to that. The one thing I would say is there's a really interesting ideology out there now, and I only know this from helping my fiance Ashlyn with her homework for her, I forget if it was like a psychology class or what it was, but they were saying that there's more than five senses, and they made, I mean, it wasn't even an argument, it was a very compelling case though, that, okay, your sense of balance, your sense of temperature, there's all these other ones, so I would say find a good detailed list, because I can't even remember all the ones that they were listing out, and see how you can play with that. Some of the ones that people don't even think about traditionally as a sense.
I love that idea. So that's what one of the things I'm going to try to do for next week. If you get the opportunity, try it yourself or just start noticing this with other things you see. I'd love to hear what you think about next time we meet.
Absolutely. Actually, I won't get a chance to do this. I was going to say, next time I'm on a plane, one of the things they pointed out is even though perception-wise, you on a plane, when it's tilted up or down or left or right, you're tilting with it. You shouldn't perceive a change in the elevation from the front to the end of the plane because you're also changing, and yet you instinctively know it, and that's part of your sense of balance. How could you convey that on a camera?
Yeah, that's doable but hard, and I don't know how to do that yet.
I don't either. So I was going to say that's next time I'm on a plane, I'm going to pay more attention to that because it's one of those things that no one thinks about and we take for granted, but a really interesting effect of our bodies and our senses just naturally taking charge and knowing what's going on in the world around us.
Yeah. All right. So one thing I wanted to get to next was before in the pre-brief, we were talking a little bit about the tone. And I think that's kind of interesting enough to dive into. It's been so helpful gradually making this more focused on a topic that connects to itself. And when I reviewed our recording from last week, I could hear the parts where we discussed things, and it felt like we were kind of losing steam. We were getting more intense, but we were losing the momentum of what we had been building the previous, half an hour. And it made me realize that this is what the core of listening is. Doing this isn't just going to make our podcast better and our storytelling better. This very exact same thing will make your conversations and maybe even your relationships even more real and connected. And that's kind of like even a bigger perk than mastering storytelling. Where there was a time when you were talking about, some storytelling thing. And I was like, oh yeah.
As I do.
And that added and kept the momentum going. I was like, oh, well, that's why these people are unhappy and they should be doing this. And then immediately, like, okay, that is a completely separate topic. It's a really good, important one, but it doesn't connect with this, so it doesn't add to the momentum. And I do that a whole lot in my conversations one-on-one. So mastering that for this will improve my skill at doing it for that. My friend Sean, who lives in Dublin, he's really focused on having quiet time in nature, and his job is increasingly busy. So a few weeks ago, I think I mentioned it, he just went on and said, hey, I actually don't text anymore. I'm going to send a bunch of voice messages once a week, and that's what we're going to do. And it's kind of naturally just turned into our friendship is just giving each other podcasts that we recorded ourselves. There's the Sean podcast and the Ethan podcast.
I like it.
And the quality of conversation has gone up. The biggest part has been the listening, just like what I'm talking about here with, keeping our content more focused on the storytelling topic actually means that I'm listening to you better and I'm listening to the audience better. The very same thing with him where there's no way to get a response, so I really just have to listen to the entire 30 minutes and really think about it. When I respond, it's so much more focused onto the thing he was talking about instead of going on tangents. And it's gotten much more intelligent and rewarding.
You're not just being ADHD brain that today's society reinforces of, okay, we're going to talk for a minute and then I'm going to get distracted by that amazing dog over there. And we're both going, oh my God, it's a dog. Look how beautiful that dog is. And then, oh, there's a beautiful woman over there too. And, oh, let's go back to the dog. And
yeah.
What were we talking about before?
And it could even be your friend who's a dog trainer and is really into that. But the fact that you're not sticking with that one topic and giving it time to breathe and grow and get to fullness.
You're not letting it fully mature.
Yeah. So easy to say the words. In the brain, this is kind of a semi-realization for me, but starting to get that as a skill to actually do it in real life, I'm freaking excited about that.
It is definitely a skill, and it can be a very rewarding one. I've got a regular at the bar, and just saw him and his wife last night, actually, and they have 5 beehives right now. And I never thought I'd be interested in hearing about beehives, but they have some of the funniest stories and amazing, incredible facts about bees that I never would have known. And it's been something where I saw how excited she was to talk about beehives one time, and now I've had at least 5 conversations with them about bees.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love it and look forward to it every time now. But at the same time, when someone comes in and they don't really know what they're talking about and are just telling me I should invest in NFTs, and they're excited to talk about NFTs, but they don't know enough about NFTs, I don't really want to continue down that path anymore.
I have seen and felt the same thing too. It's one of those things in life where I felt it for so long before I understood what it was, and then finally it clicked, and now I can do something about it. it turns out that finding people who have the same interests as you is really not important.
No.
Finding people with the same level of intentionality, the person that's great at beekeeping that I don't care about, but they take the same amount of passion, intentionality, and like you said, they know a lot about it. They actually are taking it seriously.
They make me want to beekeep because they're making it so interesting and
Yeah.
engaging.
And that's great. You're having a good conversation too, but you're also having the number of things you like in this world be expanded.
Absolutely. It's a wonderful experience and enriching and enlightening for everyone involved. That's the type of conversations I want to have more of.
I feel that's the whole point of all of this.
I will drink to that, and you're a little ahead of me, so if you'd like another glass, let me know.
I will in a bit. I'm trying to hold my paces. It's been we'll talk about it later, but it's been a very busy week for you. I can entirely guarantee, but it's been a very busy week for me, so I'm trying to pace myself.
I'm pacing myself more than I normally would because I know I've got a few drinks coming tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's going to be a long night.
Yeah. We'll get to that in a bit. So the next part I wanted to get to was course update. I'm
Yes.
finding that, it seemed like it'd be useful to just keep going through and like, here's what I learned, because eventually it becomes old news and it forgets why it was so important. You just have the skill, but recording it is okay. So if this is your first time walking through it, you'll walk through the same step that I went through. So it'd be good to like keep a record of these. The first thing I realized is it's really hard to keep track of time. I first started writing something, and then I went through our last episode. I was like, oh, no, that was before our last episode, and I've already talked about this. I feel starting to keep track of that will be yet another way that this will actually improve how I learn more.
Okay.
So in yet another way, doing this podcast with you is helping me get better at all the things I care about.
Well, I'm glad to be helping any way I can.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So I did find what was new since then.
Okay.
3 things: templates, effects, and social media.
Templates, I know how powerful they can be just from your little test footage that you made and we were discussing earlier. I know you mentioned that the numbers popping up on screen and everything, that was a template. You bought it off a guy for what, like $5 for how many templates?
There was a place where it's like, hey, $5, get all these templates in a huge pack, and that was some of the ones that were in there.
I mean, it looked beautiful, looked so professional. So the fact that you can have that for $5 is an incredible tool rather than spending the time trying to do all that yourself. Now you have probably, 120 options that is a click away.
First of all, it hit me how much impact it has, because I didn't realize that doing effects could actually change the feel of it that much. So that was eye-opening and also inspiring. So I can sit back and look and go, if I'd want to do this, here's a good way to do it. Here's how high the ceiling that could get. So that alone was just worth just diving in head first before making a big plan and learning everything. I also feel, my takeaway from this, it feels that you're going to want to learn how to do this yourself, but the templates are great at showing you what direction to run and give you a nice narrow band of what things you want to learn to get done the things you want to learn. So instead of like learning everything under the sun and feeling like, what am I doing wandering the desert?
Sure.
It says, I should have this, I'm going to learn how to do this, and I can make my own. So it turns out you can do most of this stuff fairly easily in Premiere Pro, DaVinci, or whatever. I see this other program getting talked a lot called After Effects. That's the app that's specifically for
Adobe?
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
So there's got to be a different version of Adobe After Effects, and doing that is specifically for making these effects. So it's easier to do it, and you have a lot more control. And that was kind of neat. So now I have an understanding of the value of that and how it's useful to learn some of that and how much to learn. So what happened was I recorded video of the racetrack that they were going to race for the Indy cars down here in Nashville.
I saw that video, I think, where you did the first turn, second turn, third turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had in my mind, like,
Was that on your Instagram or where?
Mhm.
Okay, that's where I saw it.
so I did those two things at once. I learned to do some effects, some more transitions, and I also did my first, Instagram post. Actually doing the whole vertical, 16 by 9, but vertical. And I feel the footage was pretty good, but it was like, you need to have some kind of feel that you're turning from left to right when you switch between the lanes. And doing this, the way the drone turns is pretty slow, or it turns so fast that it's just a blur and you can't see anything.
Yes.
So I wanted to do going a straight line and then having the next clip being the next road, but have a transition that kind of spins the camera to have that feeling that you're turning.
Okay.
I don't know if that came across, but that's what it was fun to learn about.
There was some times where it didn't really seem to have that, but that was because it was just gradual turns, and it was like 3 turns in one shot, and it was very minimal. But the bigger ones, I definitely felt that and thought that was good.
Great. So for that, I did this, it's a kind of like a rotation transition where you zoom in really close, you rotate, and then it transitions to the next clip and then zooms out.
Okay.
The zoom in makes the switch less jarring, so it feels like you kind of just did blur between them. You also add a little bit of motion blur to the footage as well. I got this from a template. It gave me the idea, it showed me how to do it, but it could only do it one way. I needed to have a difference feeling between left turns and right turns.
Right.
So after that, I had to go learn how to do it myself and build it. That part didn't really take so much time, but having that guide of here's something that could be done, here's a good way to do it, that must have rapidly sped up getting me to where I wanted to be.
Very nice.
It also destroyed my computer.
Oh, okay.
I was having so much fun. All these people talking about what kind of computer you need, building proxies, all these kind of things you can do to speed up how responsive your editing software is. And I've never had problems. I don't know what he's talking about. Maybe it's just 2023 laptops are super powerful now. The second I started doing this kind of effect, the computer just gurk, gurk, gurk. It's like, okay, let's try this again. It slowed down and full on shut off.
I have similar experience. Do you remember my test video that I sent you? Well, it was your fight night with the raccoons footage.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to make that a lot better, but it was to the point where it was showing every, I think it was 30th frame, and just chugging along and not being able to work. So I just rendered the video and it was like, this is my 85%. I could get it better, but the laptop's going to make it slow enough to where it's not going to happen and not going to be worth it. And thankfully the render didn't have that problem, but trying to edit and work on it was just not going to continue working.
Yeah. So there's a certain amount of knowing what can I do with the tools I can have, but I like the effect. Eventually I'm going to want to be able to do these things. So I took a little bit of time, looked into After Effects. A lot of this stuff is easier to accomplish there, and it's more dedicated. So if you just do it there and then plug it over, you can get around that a lot. The second thing is I went out and bought this. That's why that Frankenstein has been getting built.
Okay. I was going to say that looks like a very expensive fan over there.
It is a little bit more than fans. But yeah, it's got a really, it's got other stuff. You could do fun stuff, but
Of course.
it's got a really fast processor, so it can handle just the raw computing of visual effects.
Very nice. That'll be... Look forward to seeing how much that setup evolves the next time I'm down here.
Yeah. So the last thing I wanted to hit on this is when I went to do the social post, you're supposed to do it in 9:16.
Yes.
There's a couple parts I want to hit on this that was surprising, and I want to share what I learned with you so you don't have to repeat this process. But one thing that happened, my turns, the animation was the text would come from zoomed out to kind of fly into the screen and then land on the spot where it's supposed to be.
Right.
Every single thing that Adobe uses to calculate where it's going, how big it is, and all this, is based on the frame size. So when I cut it down to 9:16, everything was the wrong size, going the wrong direction. There's 15 turns. Each one, like I have to return.
So you need to start with that framing and then add in the effects?
There's a whole bunch of stuff you can change. You can set up in the original so that your anchor point or your box is based around a 9:16, so it's not going to change. There's another render setting of saying, like, just make it based on its absolute location, not relative.
Okay.
There's another thing. You could make the freaking effect in After Effects. If you use the right tool, it takes more time to learn, but you have to deal with less nonsense. And then you just bring it in, and it stays where it is.
Yeah, that sounds like it might be worth an investment at some point.
So that was another wall I ran into that I learned from, but man, consumed a whole lot of time and was stressing me out. The next two things, pretty quick. Framing things up in 9:16 and vertical is harder than I thought. So what idea I came up with is I actually put a layer over it, which is black, and then masked out just those pixels in the center. So when I'm looking through all of my footage, I can just see the part that's going to end up in the final cut. So I could start sliding things into frame or out of frame, or picking and discarding clips that just didn't fit. And that helped me like get the raw material pretty good. Once I had that working well and had the effects working well, changing the actual frame to export it, because you want to export it from your editor. If you just make the video with this and then chop it out, it re-encodes it, and then it's like lower quality. And what's the point of doing this if you don't have good quality?
Yep.
I had to tell Adobe to make a new sequence in a different size, and the math just didn't come out. I'm like, what the hell? I'm going from 16:9 to 9:16. This should be super easy. Why is everything working out? Turns out that the 5K recording mode on my drone doesn't do 16:9 5K. It does this thing called DCI 5K. It's a little extra wide to be more cinematic. So one of these things that wouldn't be that big of a pain in the ass, because if you at least know that was happening, but just kept on doing things that should work. If it was 16:9 and it didn't, it's like, fuck.
Yeah, that would be frustrating.
So there's some extra resolutions that seem to get used, so double check that stuff.
That's good to know. And I assume if, like, social media for Instagram that we're using, when it says 16:9, that's what our phone thinks of 16:9, because that's how most content creators are recording, is on their phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's also, they didn't call it 16:9. It's just 5K, just how many pixels in it, but it's
They call it just like square or something on Instagram.
They call it DCI, which stands for something like 177 by like 68. You know, they're trying to be fancy.
Of course.
Just something to check out for that.
Good to know.
Look at your actual pixel count and your ratio, and if it doesn't come out right, go, there are other things out there. They're doing something fancy. Let me figure out how to get it to where I want to be.
Good to know.
It also answered why some of my YouTube videos has a little black bar on the edges.
Yeah.
Because my perfect video that should just fit in isn't actually 16:9. It's a little fancy.
Makes sense. That's very good to know.
All right, before I hit the next thing, could you give me a little more?
Please.
Seriously, the more I drink this, the more I like it.
More?
Touch more. Thank you. Yes.
I'm hoping that I'll see you tonight, and so you'll be drinking more as well, I'm sure.
Yes, I will 100% be there.
Glad to hear it.
All right, so the next thing I wanted to hit real quick was the update on adding more things. Last time we actually got the multi-channel audio working.
Yes.
Today I wanted to get video working, so we actually have some setup. We got some camera, started learning about that. There's a lot we could talk about that. I'm going to wait until we've had more experience and I have better answers. Right. The actual most important thing that I'm learning about this, recording yourself is so important. You're a really good speaker. You know you're a good speaker.
Man, the first time I recorded, I hated the sound of my own voice.
Mm.
Actually, the first time I recorded with this microphone, I was blown away by how much better it sounded, thankfully, but I still hated the sound of my own voice.
Mm.
It wasn't until I was going in and editing episodes, and I spent at least 9 hours listening to my own voice, that I was finally more comfortable with being recorded.
Well, that's great.
So it's an uphill battle, but it gets better.
That's exactly the process that you're going to have to do again with video.
Fuck.
So the sound's great. I recorded myself talking a few times, and I think there's so much powerful stuff you can do with that. When I am thinking, I make so many facial tics. Like, my lips do not fucking stop moving because I'm thinking. It looks horrible. That's worse than having ums and ahs in your audio.
You can cut that out. Just stop, clean plate, start speaking again, and just have that be, okay, now I'm going to cut to Zoom.
Yeah.
You
Not
can
super,
make that work.
not super duper worried about it.
No.
It is hard when I'm not looking at something. So I'm talking to you, I'm concentrating. I have something to listen to. But when I'm just looking at a camera, like, everything goes all over the place. And getting used to that, it's just one of these things that there's nothing to take but time. So the sooner you actually start doing it, even if this is you recording in front of your microphone for something that's a pure audio podcast, just getting those hours in to get comfortable with it, I think that'd be really valuable.
Fair enough. One of the pieces of advice that I was given for video recording is you don't want to be staring directly into the camera lens because that's boring. You won't focus on it. So what they were saying is, if you have a camera person, great, look them in the eyes. They're more interesting. Watch their reaction.
Yeah.
For you, you have that TV there. Pop up a script of whatever you're reading.
Yep.
Something to, even if it's just a rough outline you want to follow, pop that up behind your camera so that way you're looking at the camera, but you're more so looking at what's beyond it.
Yeah. That's why I have this set up. It's not just a camera stand. It's a laptop stand. So I'm going to have my laptop with the notes, and then I can move the camera arm right in front of it. So I'm looking at the camera, but I'm reading the notes.
Very good.
That'll be my next step. They make some pretty clever teleprompters you can get for about $100. Some of them you can use with your phone. So you can get started on that pretty well. And you have that thing where you're directly looking at your text as it comes up while you're staring completely straightly at the camera. But it's also a little bit of a skill to get used to, you know?
That is something to look at. And don't think I'm going to quite yet set $100 into a teleprompter right now, but it's good to know that they're only $100. I thought they'd be more.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Also, I'm 100% on board. Like, time is the most valuable resource right now, and you have all these cool options. You know, whatever catches your eye or ear, just spend time on it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the last thing, before we start asking about what's going on with you, is the prepared story. So I want to work on this. I have a plan that we're going to do this in multiple segments. I have a story that I want to tell. It's very, very rough. It's not scripted. It doesn't even have the 3 points of start, middle, end planned out.
That's fine.
I'm going to tell it this time. Next week, I'd like you to tell something. In 2 weeks, I'll come back to this again, and I'll do it with the start, middle, and end. Then you'll tell something. 4 weeks from now, I will tell it with a fully written out script. And each time I'd like to get some feedback. This time, I don't know how much feedback there's going to be because this can be a train wreck, so we can just kind of enjoy.
Hey, I can help you set it up and how I would format it to help give you an idea of direction, where to go with it.
All right. So, obviously, this is going to be a story about a story.
Okay.
This is the story of the Donut Lord. I was watching this movie a couple weeks ago, and I might have even mentioned it. And it was a lighthearted, goofy kind of comedy movie about an alien coming to America and the hideout, and then the FBI starts chasing them, and this cop helps them out, yada, yada, yada. Kind of fun. Gets to the end, though, and it has this line, "I'm the Donut Lord, motherfucker." And I was just cracking up. It's the loudest I have ever laughed in this house the whole time. It's an okay line, but the storytelling that went into it built 3 different layers of meaning into that were all really important. So when it hit with so much force, where I enjoyed it, but I was like, holy crap, this is some great storytelling. I think there's something here to learn from. So I'd like to explain that to you.
Okay.
And, I'd like to get better at telling the story, but I'd also like us to learn what we can from this. So what happens is there's 2.5, 3 things that go, arcs for this movie. The beginning is just the cop. So he's living in this small town, and he's good at what he does, but there's only one other cop in the whole place, and there's nothing really crime that happens. So he starts to feel like my work's kind of meaningless. They don't need me. And his ambition becomes to become a cop in the big city where he can actually do stuff saving lives. Good guy, good ambition. I like this story, and I feel for me at least this has more impact because it starts with the guy already happy. It's not the character arc where someone's sad, and then they go on to this, and then they get what they want. It's like he's already doing good.
He's doing good. He's just a little unfulfilled, and now he's chasing that next step, which very relatable.
So being good and getting better is something I get motivated about.
That right now, so that's a great way of introducing a character and having us immediately identify with him.
Yeah, I get emotionally invested when it's not, here's a problem, fix it, whatever. I do that all the time. But here's something good and we're going to make it even better. Fuck yeah. So as he's going, the alien's hiding out in the forest. He's bored as hell. So he just watches the townspeople because there's nothing else to do. But he can't interact with them, otherwise he's going to get caught.
Right.
He gives nicknames to everybody because he can't hear what they're talking about. His nickname for the policeman is Donut Lord.
Nice.
Clearly, he seems like the boss of the town, and all he does is eat donuts. As you go on, you start to realize that the alien is basically the equivalent of an 8-year-old kid. So to him, Donut Lord is a pretty fucking cool thing to be. So the movie starts moving along, and the next plot arc begins. He runs into the cop. The cop has to help him escape and get out of there. And it starts off, he hates the alien. He's annoying as fuck. As time goes on, he starts to warm up to him. It's you're annoying, but I kind of see you as good on the inside, and you're like a kid, and you kind of form this father-son bond.
Right.
And that's this arc that goes through the whole movie, because he's helping him, but I'm helping you because I feel like I have to as a good person. I actually hate doing this. By the end of the movie, he's I actually like helping you, The name Donut Lord actually doesn't seem insulting. It's kind of endearing now. The place he has to help him escape towards is San Francisco, the place where the guy actually was going to get his job to be a big city cop. They go there, they do all this stuff, and while he's there, he realizes this fucking sucks. San Francisco really does suck. And he actually likes being the small town cop even more than he likes being the big city cop.
The big city cop where they all hate you and think you're an asshole.
They're nice to him in the movie, but they give good reasons. We're he didn't have any other experiences, so we didn't know how much he liked being what he is. So then they go back and they have the big final fight in his hometown. So the FBI or whatever actually starts kind of burning things in his town to try to get him to show up so they can capture the alien. So we have the third level of, defending the place he loves. He likes being the small town cop now. He's proud of being that guy. He's super attached to the alien guy. So the idea of Donut Lord is, feels like an honorific instead of an insult. And he's really damn good at what he does.
I'm not just a small-time cop. I'm the motherfucking Donut Lord.
Yeah, he never had to do anything, but he can. So he's beating the holy shit out of the FBI, and the guy's like, "Who the fuck are you?" And he's like, "I'm the Donut Lord, motherfucker."
Nice. Lives up to the 8-year-old's dream.
It was endearing. I enjoyed it.
Very nice. That's a good story.
The end.
Let me collect my thoughts for a second on how I would frame this for you.
Yeah, we're trying to both have an arc where the phrase at the end has some meaning, but also explain how these two and a half layers are building to it without spoiling what's going to happen and deflating the balloon before you get there, while actually still making sense.
It's definitely something that I've seen in a lot of movies is a punchline where they're just saying something that would be ridiculous, but with the right context, this random phrase becomes endearing. Second Guardian of the Galaxies, I'm Mary Poppins, bitch.
Yeah.
Something like that. You see that a lot, and it's when it's well done, it's the joke of the movie that everyone's going to remember.
That's a great example. That was good. That was enjoyable. But it was just, here's something we heard before. Now we're hearing it again, and it's kind of an inside joke.
That's more endearing. It makes you feel like you're part of something when it's that way.
This felt like it had more layers in it, where it was like an actual character arc that had gone the whole movie to go from hating this to liking this. So it wasn't like, oh, I heard that joke. Oh, now we're bringing it back. Like, no, like the whole character journey I've gone through is reflected of why I like this now.
I would start off by framing it more negatively then, and talking about it from the cop's point of view of everyone knows the stereotype that cops like eating donuts. It's not my fault I'm a cop who likes donuts. It just happens to be that way.
I like that. So you do the journey through the story with the same emotional feeling as the character, where at first you feel like it's a bad thing. So later, that when it feels like that's a good thing, you've gone through the same arc of emotion that the character has.
Yep, just frame it of, yeah, nothing really goes wrong here, and as much as I'd like to take credit for it, it's more so there's just nothing that can go wrong here. And so I'm left to enjoy my donuts in peace. Enough to where an outside observer called me the Donut Lord, rather than my respectful title that I earned of an officer of the law.
Yeah.
Why are they not respecting me? It's not my fault that I can't do more. I want to do more. There's nothing going wrong for me to help with.
Yeah.
And then it growing to, oh, they're jealous. I'm the Donut Lord. I get to be the one in charge, and I get to have these people feeding me these delicious, delectable fried dough treats. And now people are threatening this town that I love. They're threatening everything that I haven't even needed to fight to protect. But you know, I'm damn sure going to now. You know why? I'm the Donut Lord, motherfucker.
Yeah. It's so much deeper. You're so great at this, where I'm like trying to get the baby steps of ordering things in a good amount of time. Like, do you start at the end and do a flashback? Do you go like 1, 2, 3? And then you were just bringing like, have you considered the order of emotion? Like, fuck, that's even more important.
The most overplayed thing in my mind is the whole flashback thing of, yep, that's me. I bet you're wondering how I got here. Let's rewind. And then it's the shitty rewind animation, and it just flashes back to like a year before, and you're like, okay, sure, there's going to be something where it's connected, but this is, I feel like it's so overplayed, and I feel like it was overdone in the 90s, early 2000s, that nowadays people are, if you're doing your job right, you don't need to throw them into the deep end, take them out, and then show them the cannonball.
Yeah.
You can just walk them up to a pool and have it be interesting enough to where they're going to understand you're going to do a cannonball, and it's going to be cool.
I like that silence thing, or the void thing that you were talking about last month, where if you do it right, you can make it very strong, you know what's going to happen, but the fact that the audience has to fill in that gap makes it have a lot stronger emotion.
Absolutely. The times where it's just force-fed that, yeah, this is going to happen and it'll be funny, and you won't understand why until we get here again.
Yeah, I don't care now, so fuck off.
It's like saying the punchline to the joke first.
Yeah. That's a good way to
It's
put
just
it.
something that annoys me so much now, and I still see it happen so often.
I feel the same way, which is why I'm so dedicated to learning to do this correctly. Because when I tell my stories they're not humorous, but effectively I am telling the punchline first. So I'm trying to learn to use the right order. So this is going to be good to get better at.
That's my first thought. There's definitely ways that you can do that, and there's ways you can tease. When I've got one story that I tell, and I don't tell this too often. I can tell it for you now if you want, or otherwise we're approaching the hour, and we can do this off mic if you prefer.
Yeah, let's do this off mic.
Okay.
I'm trying to get better at having following the clock.
What I try and do, though, if I'm going to do something like that, is I say something shocking and jarring, and then once you hear the full story, it has the completely different meaning. And so the story is I had to drive someone from the bar to rehab.
Yep, that's a good hook.
You don't need to know anything about the details. You already have an idea in your head of, oh God, what happened?
Okay, so we'll have a wrap-up session to bring this full circle. 2 questions. Number 1, before our next meeting, big or small as just watching one clip and having a thought to bring back of it, is there anything that you're thinking about working on, doing, or learning?
Honestly, at this point, it's just getting everything that needs to be done for the move, and pushing aside things to the back burner for now. So I have not done very many projects at all. I've done a little bit of writing for the podcast, and that is it.
Cool. That's awesome to hear about. Next time, I'll ask you a little about your writing, even if it's just digesting on the things you've already written. It'd be great to get a follow-up on that.
Absolutely.
So last question. Absolutely no other lot. Do you want to hunt a little longer, or do you just want to figure out when we'll have a chance to do a remote call?
Let's figure out a remote call. I'd say give me a week, maybe 2 once I move up there, and I should be set.
All right, cool. Definitely want to make sure you have a chance to get all this settled. That's exciting. As your friend, I want to hear about that first. I mean, when you actually feel like this is going to be useful and beneficial for you again, then we can start scheduling this again.
No, I don't want it to get pushed back too far. Otherwise, I know it will be harder to jump back into it. So the faster we can force me to get up and running, the more I'm going to be hitting the ground running, and it will be better for me.
100%. Great. Awesome. Okay, so want to get us all in.
Real quick, what project are you going to be working on next?
Let's see. I have a list somewhere. Right now, I'm working on. I'd actually recorded the truck races.
Okay.
I didn't fucking know the trucks do jumps. So I have.
Very nice.
I have to finish putting together. It's going to be first a nice little short because there's not much happening. Just jump and that's it. So I'm making an Instagram thing to the America Fuck Yeah theme of trucks driving through Nashville but going through the air.
Nice.
Next thing is I'm going to try to make a YouTube version of it, and then I'm going to actually start putting in some time on the ground-based videography stuff. There's supposed to be that practice where you film somebody making a cup of coffee and use 12 different movements, and then look at it and go, okay, I see what's happening. I would rather have this action been with this movement, that action, and redo it again. I'm going to have to try to find a model because the only 2 people that have patience for actually doing this stuff are you and the one lady friend who showed up on Thursday saying that she's leaving Missouri suddenly, and
No.
that's why I got extra busy this week. So everyone's gone. So I will pay a homeless person or something.
I believe you'll find a way to make it happen, and I would challenge you to figure out a way to get those movements with yourself still.
I can probably show this real quick, but then we should then just hear about what's going on in your life. I have a very good idea.
I've seen some really interesting clips where people just tie a string to their phone and have it on a Hot Wheel car and just pull that across the floor to get a panning shot. And they're doing that with their foot while they're pouring a cup of coffee. I believe you'll find some way of doing it.
This is a photo. This is a photo of the new Titans stadium that they're going to build. I love the Titans. This stadium looks fucking stupid, and it looks so familiar.
Like a PS1.
It looks exactly like the frickin' Intel chip box that I got.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just gonna film this in super dramatic shots, copy their music, post onto it, and just like send it, like tag them at it. Like, this is how unimpressive your thing looks. You can put the music, you can make it sound dramatic. It's just a frickin' box of.
Yeah, that's bad. Here, I'll pull up what that immediately reminded me of.
It's got no character. It looks like a shopping mall. I mean, it's
Not even.
pretty, but it's not.
Not really. It's too minimalist. It doesn't give you that sense of grandeur that a sports team you want to have.
You can't see anything inside it. It looks like Assembly Hall down on Fifth Street, which is basically the Walmart of Broadway. It's where you take your wife and kids.
This was my first thought.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. People are saying that too.
Man, it looks like you should be putting a DVD in that thing. That is unfortunate.
With all the money you're spending on it, you can do anything. You could do something anyway. So that's one of my next things. I think this will be a good practice, and then I actually think this will make it me. So once I've done that, I'll probably be able to learn more when I do it with a human.
I think that's a good plan.
So that's me. So that's it for like the podcast. This week you must have had so many parties and drinks and events.
I've gone to 4 or 5 distilleries and 5 liquor stores. And so you know this, I recently got a puppy as well, and it was one of the stylists had a litter of 9 chocolate and black labs, and she just gave one to us. We didn't have to buy him or anything, which she didn't even realize how expensive purebred labs were. I had to tell her, hey, my friend is buying one for over $2,000. You do not understand how much I owe you for this. This is huge. Thank you. So I put together a nice little gift basket for her. I got like a Minnesota loon stuffed animal for the dogs to play with when I was flying back from Minnesota in the airport.
That is a good
I got her a cocktail shaker and everything to make a cocktail that we found out she liked called the South Side. So gin, lemon juice, lime juice, mint syrup. Gave her the recipe so she can make that herself. And then I had the fun idea of, okay, well, let's get her a bottle of flavored whiskey, and it's called Bird Dog Chocolate Flavored Whiskey. And the reason why I wanted that specific bottle was that one has a chocolate lab on the label.
Oh.
Never tried it. It's probably god-awful, but it was more so the joke for the lab. And I swear to God, I've seen it every liquor store I've walked into because I always put the flavored whiskey by the whiskey. The one time I'm looking for it, I have to go to 4 fucking liquor stores. So that is why I went to 4 liquor stores
to get that
last week, was just looking for a bottle of flavored whiskey.
And the distilleries?
That was more fun.
Which ones did you hit?
Hit Nashville Craft Distilling twice, Pennington, went to Greenbrier, still want to go back there because I didn't see Kevin, my friend who hooked us up before with the nice whiskey there.
Yeah, I hooked up with him too.
You guys should be friends because he loves Irish whiskey.
Yeah.
So you guys should absolutely try and continue that friendship.
If you squeeze it in before you leave, I will go on a moment's notice, dude. I like that place.
Hey, honestly, what are you doing tomorrow, like early afternoon?
Going to Greenbrier.
Sounds good, because they just opened up their restaurant there, and it's only open for like brunch.
Yeah.
So I've been meaning to check it out.
I'm so looking forward to it. Like, we were talking last time that filming the inside of distilleries and the outside would be really nice. But the inside of, Nelson Greenbrier, it's going to be great, but right now there hasn't been too much to see, so that'll be awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to what that looks like and what the food's like. The pictures they post online looks great, but that's pictures online that they're cherry picking to look great.
Hey, if you know what you're doing, you can make anything look nice.
So I'm hoping that it lives up to what they've been able to do on social media for it. If weather was nice, I was tempted to either try and go out to Tullahoma and visit Dickel because I haven't yet, or go to, there's 3 distilleries all on the state line of Tennessee and Kentucky, 2 in Tennessee, 1 in Kentucky, which is also, like an hour drive away.
Yeah, it's honestly, it takes a half an hour to go to Green Hills and a half an hour to get back from Green Hills, and that's 2 miles away. Going to Kentucky in an hour, fuck yeah, that's more fun.
But you can hit all 3 distilleries. 2 of them are on the Tennessee Whiskey Trail, so you can get those stamps in the poker chip. But if you hit all 3, they give you like a little stave or something with a glass for each distillery or something like that. So they call it like the border trail or something.
I like the name.
Yeah, I don't remember what they call it, but it's something where it's those 3 distilleries and you get something if you hit all 3 of them. So depending on what the weather's like, I might try and do something like that still.
That'd be gross. That'd be great. I'm shifting gears of doing more things out of love instead of I have to hit deadlines. So yeah, that sounds all exciting.
I'm doing this I don't have much time left here. I need to drink all the things.
Yes. So then how was the thing on Thursday?
The
tasting at the bar?
Yes. That was with Widow Jane. Great event. Almost killed off one of the bottles that same night, and it's the one that I had a feeling we would be very popular with, so I'm glad that one went so well. It's a rye with applewood finish, and they were pushing for us to make smoked Manhattans with applewood smoke for it. I made one myself, just when the event was getting up for myself, and goddamn, it's good.
That does sound good.
It's a really nice, complex drink, but still rounded. You don't need to overthink it. Very well done.
Yeah. I love those events. Would have loved to have been there, but sudden farewell of another friend.
Other bottles with him that he poured me, so I had about 5 drinks on Thursday. It's fine.
This is about the least hungover I've ever seen you.
I can't be hungover if I don't stop.
Like Archer. All right, let's chat more without the recording so we can relax. But
sounds good.
I really have appreciated you working with me on all this stuff,
Pleasure is mine, sir.
personally and professionally.
Likewise.
Best experience that I've had in Tennessee.
I'm hopeful that will continue without me in Tennessee and continue to be as rewarding. Normally you do the clap sync at the beginning of the recording, but okay.